listeners. Today we have Abigail Puccioni, and she is somebody that I met on, yep, you guessed it, 29029 Stratton, 2022. As I followed Abigail, I was really intrigued with her history, where she had come from. She is an integrative health practitioner, and I am thrilled to have her on because I have so many questions about her health journey, the highs, the lows, what worked, what didn't work. Abigail, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tell us about your journey. What is an integrative health practitioner to begin with?
Yeah, so before I get into that, I'll just back up and kind of go from the beginning about how I even became an integrative health practitioner, because that is definitely not something that was on my radar. I studied psychology in school. I was in grad school for forensic psychology. I lived in Italy for a few years because I took a break in between undergrad and grad school and had a business over there. So anyway, I've done a little bit of everything. But anyway, when I was living over there, I started having a lot of chronic health issues. And I had dealt with chronic pain since even before moving to Italy, since I would say my senior year of college is when things started to get really bad. I had chronic back pain. And for a while, it was just the chronic back pain, but then it became a lot of other chronic issues, like kind of weird, mysterious infections, like recurring infections popping up, like different skin issues that doctors like kind of didn't know how to diagnose it. And they would do a bunch of, tests and labs, and they just couldn't find anything. I remember one time I ended up in an Italian emergency room with like really severe stomach pain. And they kept me in the hospital for 2 days, and they did all these tests, and they were like, we don't know what's wrong with you, basically. And they sent me home. They said, just, eat lots of pasta. I was like, okay. That's like how they handle everything there.
I'm all about the pasta.
Yeah, for real. So anyway, I was just kind of really feeling lost and depressed and hopeless because I tried what I felt like was everything that, conventional medicine had to offer me. My dad's a doctor. I came back to the States and saw, some of the best of the best, and, all these like weird symptoms that were popping up. The biggest one was the back pain, of course, because they saw my MRI. I did have herniated discs. I was a ballet dancer in high school. I had had some back injuries from that. And, I had the herniated disc that you see on the MRI, but the doctors were like, well, where your pain's at is not necessarily correlated with where these discs are herniated, So I saw, oh my gosh, so many physical therapists, did so many like acupuncture, different, holistic treatments also, different things that I tried. And I just kind of hit a dead end. And so anyway, I decided to enroll while I was in grad school in this certification course to become an integrative health practitioner, because I thought, well, if no one can help me, then I'm going to figure out how to heal myself. And that was kind of and the start of this was around the time when COVID hit in 2020 is kind of when I started making this transition. And so, I dove in, I started studying, and I actually dropped out of grad school because I'm like, wow, this is so fascinating. And because of how many issues I was having, I'm like, I know other people out there are really struggling with chronic issues as well. And so I want to make this, my mission to figure out how to, heal myself and then help others. So, as most people would probably associate with integrative health, it's a lot of diet changes and supplements and protocols and, a lot of kind of fear of toxins, I would say, like everything's toxic. Have to get air filters and water filters. And, I got super into it. So I'm doing these, super restrictive, kind of diets and protocols, taking like 20 plus supplements at a time, kind of getting really, I would say, obsessive with it. And, I would have little, breakthroughs and kind of get better with certain symptoms, but then other symptoms would get worse. And it was never like straightforward, like, progress. It kind of was very up and down. And so anyway, looking back over this whole journey, I see how I was stuck in what I call the health and wellness, like hamster wheel, or the hamster wheel of wellness. And I think a lot of people kind of get on that because they're hopeless, you know, and they're looking for answers. And they're like, well, if so-and-so says that this supplement works, then, you know, or you just need to take this probiotic for gut health or, you know, whatever, then, you know, that will fix it. And then, you know, I got even more into like root cause healing, which, you know, I thought heavy metals and parasites and mold toxicity and, you know, all this stuff. And so I was doing so many like protocols, and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to detox mold, and then I'm going to detox parasites, and then I'm going to detox my heavy metals, you know, and it was just this never ending like spiral. And, you know, at one point I kind of thought to myself, well, if any of this stuff worked, wouldn't I be feeling like at least 50 to 75% better by now, you know? And, you know, I would feel a little better. Like,
I have to say, I'm so glad I didn't know you then, Abigail, because you and I would have been on every single detox and
yes,
cleansing, and
yes,
we would have tried all the crazy things. No
absolutely.
offense, but I would have been right in there obsessed with you.
Yeah, yeah, because it's easy to latch onto something that you think, oh, this is my way out of this
Yep.
really place, right? So, you know, I will say I did get a little better though. I mean, obviously I'm a proponent of eating, you know, fresh whole foods, you know, like minimizing processed foods, like, you know, to a certain extent, I think that that's obviously really important. But, you know, I got to one point where I'm like, you know, maybe this restriction-based mindset and maybe all of the, you know, work that I'm doing is actually like not getting to the root cause. Like maybe it's not really helping me as much as I think it is. So then I started doing a lot of work, you know, on myself and my mindset, and kind of thinking about, okay, what is the actual root cause? And kind of during this time.
What
Oh,
was,
go ahead.
sorry, what was your process in thinking that? So you knew that all these, well, first off, I'm going to ask, was there ever a time where you thought, oh my gosh, I think I have the magic formula. I feel great today. There's no pain here. There's no pain there. I think I got it.
Um, you know what? That kind of has two different answers because I think of them kind of separately. My chronic pain with like the chronic symptoms, like the gut health, you know, the different, you know, kind of chronic fatigue, like that sort of thing, the skin issues, you know, all that. With the chronic illness symptoms, those definitely did get better to a certain point. And I would think, oh, this is it, you know, this is it. And this is just going to keep getting better. But then I'd either plateau or actually get worse. And, you know, something that's really big in the health and wellness community too, is when you're on like a detox or a protocol, and then you start feeling really kind of, you know, shitty. They're like, oh, it's just detox reactions. It's just what they call it, Herx reactions. You know, it's just your body's way of pushing out the toxins. And yeah, you will feel kind of bad for, you know, a certain amount of time. But then at a certain point, it's like, okay, but if that's lasting for like weeks, at what point are we going to stop like kidding ourselves and say, well, maybe this just isn't, maybe our body doesn't like it, you know? So,
And then you had the mind shift change. What brought
right.
that about? Just because things weren't working?
Yeah, pretty much. But I will say about the chronic pain though, I did find a therapist, a physical therapist, but doing something specific called muscle activation techniques. It's this specific type of, it's really working on the nervous system, which has been really huge for me. And so it's basically reinforcing that brain to muscle connection. So that actually really did help my back pain. It was very slow progress. And I've been going every single week for about more than 2 years now. And that has helped reduce my chronic pain by like 80, 90%, I'd say. It's really huge.
That's good.
Yeah. And then I can, you know, share what reduced my chronic pain even more, like that final 10%, but, which played in with the chronic illness symptoms and stuff as well. But anyway, with the mindset shift, I started going through this transition probably this past winter and spring is when I really started, you know, questioning things. You know, I was working with a mentor, working on kind of developing, you know, the skill of listening to your own intuition. You know, I started reading a lot of, I guess, self-help books and stuff that's more in the genre of, you know, like mindset development, you know, and actually last year I had signed up for 29 of 29. I signed up for that kind of on a whim. I just felt this really big, like, until I heard about it in some like email newsletter, and I was like, I clicked the website and I'm like, I'm going to do this. Like, and at the time I was in chronic pain. I didn't do any sort of exercise, like literally nothing. I laid on the couch all day because I struggled having the energy just to get up and make myself meals, like during the day, I was really struggling. I didn't walk. I didn't do literally anything. So that was like, about a year, 2 months ago or something. So yeah, after I signed up for 29, I'm just like, I will be better by next year. Like, I don't know how. And at the time I was still very much on the hamster wheel of wellness, but I'm like, I'm going to get there. Like, this is just something that I'm going to do. So I started visualizing it. I started seeing myself climbing the mountain, started seeing myself doing the training, all of that. But anyway, that was kind of a big, I guess, starting point for me, and thinking about how our mindset and belief system plays into reaching our full potential. I don't think I'd ever thought much about that, like how big of an impact the mind has on the body. I always thought of it as more that you affect the body by what you put into the body, by, your environment more so, what toxins you're breathing in, like, is your water filtered or not, or, things like that. EMFs, blue light. I mean, oh my gosh, I've been down every rabbit hole you can go down in the natural health and wellness world. So anyway, that was definitely a big starting point for me. And then this past spring, so I guess it'd be like 6 months after I signed up, around the time I actually started, like working out more seriously, like I, got a personal trainer about exactly a year ago, and it was just very gentle strength training. Like, I wouldn't really consider it like a huge workout or anything. Like, I wasn't even sweating. It was like very easy stuff. And then I started walking, just like very minimal stuff. And then this past spring, I started kind of amping it up, a little more, obviously in preparation for the 5-month, training plan that we had. And I had no clue, they don't show you what the training plan looks like in advance. And so I had no clue, how intense it was going to be. I don't think I knew how intense the event was going to be.
I was going to interrupt real quick and say, for people who do follow me on this podcast, they know I talk about 29 24/7. It's an obsession of mine. 29029 is climbing the vertical feet of 29,029 feet in a 36-hour time period. What you're doing is you are climbing straight vert up a mountain. These are ski hills, ski mountains. I should call them mountains because they're legit mountains. And they're either black diamonds or double black diamonds. Where Abigail and I were, we had a blue square. So I think they called it easy or moderate. And then we hit a black diamond, which was, I will tell you, straight vertical. There's no doubt about it. 29029 event is considered one of the hardest endurance events in the world. It is incredibly challenging. You are going for almost at least 30 hours. The vast majority of people are going at least 30 hours, which is double an Ironman. So to put it in perspective, I did have a lot of questions about 29029. And I said, well, Ironman, you swim, ride, and then run. And regardless if it's a half Ironman or the full Ironman, what we're doing is we are only doing one discipline. So in Ironman, you get 3 disciplines and you have 17 hours. We are doing one discipline, straight vertical, and it's up to 36 hours. Again, it is, obviously there's the Moab 240, Badwater. There are several running challenges out there that are considered, obviously ultra endurance, but this is one of the world's hardest endurance challenges. So we're talking Abigail going from having a hard time getting up and making anything to eat to visualizing climbing 29,029 vertical feet in 36 hours.
Yeah. And I can't emphasize enough how when I signed up for it, I had no clue what
I
didn't know that it was an ultra endurance event. I just thought, oh, you go and climb a ski mountain a bunch of times and take the gondola down. Okay. Like, and again, there was really no logical reason. I knew intuitively, like, oh, I'm supposed to do this, because I can tell you, I've never done a 5K or 10K or marathon. I mean, I've never done anything actually up until training for 29 I never even ran a mile without stopping. So I was never, I mean, I was a dancer in high school, but I was never an athletic person. And then all through my 20s, chronic illness and chronic pain dominated my life. And I just didn't, work out. So again, this was totally like out of my comfort zone, but I thought, if I can prove to myself that, even with having, and actually this is an important component too, right before I signed up for 29 I had been diagnosed with a genetic disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which means that my connective tissues are like kind of really stretched out rubber bands that don't go back together very easily, which means I tend to get injured a lot. So that's why, all through high school, all my dance injuries kind of made sense, and, why I seem to be clumsier than everyone else, and, that sort of thing. So anyway, I think that I thought of this as, I want to pick something really hard. Again, I didn't realize how hard, train for it, and prove to myself that I'm capable of this, physically. So that was kind of the start to the mindset component. But this past spring, I really started thinking, and keep in mind, all my, colleagues and peers are other integrative health practitioners. And I saw so many of us that had been through all these protocols, all these, supplements, everything. And there were a lot of us that honestly were struggling, with these lingering symptoms. And I started thinking, shouldn't we all be better by now after we've spent who knows how many thousands of dollars on, healing stuff? I mean, the expensive air filters, the best water filtration systems, the blue light blocking glasses. I mean, oh my gosh, like all of it. So, I started thinking, we're like the most, I wanted to say like nuttiest health nuts that I know. And yeah, we should be doing really well, right? And a lot of us weren't. And it wasn't just the physical symptoms. I think people were also struggling socially, when you cut food groups out of your diet and it's, very restrictive and on protocols. And when you travel, you have to have a literal suitcase full of supplements. Like it really limits what you can do and the freedom you have in your life, and also your ability to like be social with other people, I feel like. So I was definitely living in a very isolated little bubble. And so honestly, the fear was what was dominating my life, like fear of toxins, fear of eating something that wasn't organic, or, fear of eating something packaged, or like just so much, fear around food and toxins and, all this stuff. So, because I honestly thought this is what, if I, eat this or, drink unfiltered water, I don't know, go and sleep in a hotel that could have possible mold and doesn't have an air filter in there. I'm packing my portable air filter with me, right? Like that's not healthy in my opinion. So, there was so much fear about the toxins lurking behind the corner. And I was like, I think it was this view that the world is bad and out to get me kind of thing. And I have to be perfect or else I'm going to suffer. And my symptoms, I thought, if I stop taking all this stuff and stop living this way, I'm just going to get worse. But anyway, I reached a point where I was like, you know what, kind of just like F it. Like, I'm just going to go off all my supplements. Like, I'm going to take a break from healing because I can't do this anymore. And I saw some of my clients even start to develop what I would call orthorexia, like food fear, toxin fear, and they were living such, smaller lives and like not as happy. Like, yeah, maybe some of their symptoms did get better, sure. But they, were kind of feeling isolated, like, oh, I can't, go out with my friends and, all this stuff. So anyway, I started noticing that. I was like, you know what, I'm done. Like, I felt this really strong intuitive pull, like the universe was just telling me, you need to stop. So anyway, I did. I went off of like all my supplements. I try to eat local food and stuff like that, but I stopped cutting out food groups. I started eating whatever I wanted. I stopped doing all my, coffee enemas and, detox baths and like all this stuff. Right. and I started getting better. Like, it was crazy. I mean, I'm not saying it was overnight, but I thought I was going to get worse. But instead, I actually slowly started to feel better. And I'm like, oh, and I felt happier. You know, I went and I traveled for the first time since before COVID. I went, back to Europe this summer, and it was so nice to not have to live so rigidly. Of course, there were still a lot of, fears to overcome and stuff, but, I slowly started kind of breaking out of that bubble and out of my fear-based way of, thinking and living. So yeah, that was kind of this past summer, which coincided with the 29-0-29 training. And I kind of felt like, as I'm pushing my body the limits, I was really pushing my mind too, because I started feeling healthier and stronger, mentally, because I was no longer, restricting and living in so much fear. I was really trying to, who was it that told us this? Like, feel the fear and do it anyways. I was like,
Coach Chris?
Probably, yeah. So yeah, that was kind of this past summer.
When you were talking about your mindset change, were there any books that really stuck out to you, or YouTube videos, or anything that helped you with that mind shift change?
I would say for sure Colin O'Brady, he has 2 books, the 12-hour walk, and then also the Impossible First. Those were 2 of them. And then I started getting more into meditation also. And also I discovered, so it's a podcast, it's called The Cure for Chronic Pain. And this lady, Nicole Sachs, she also has a book. I forget what it's called, but anyway, she works with people who have chronic pain and chronic illness. Any chronic symptom that doctors are kind of like, well, we can give you this medication, but we really can't like cure you. So pretty much everything that doesn't have like a cure that's chronic is what she works with people on. And I learned everything just from listening to her podcast and reading the book. But basically she started talking about how the root cause of basically all chronic symptoms, or most of them, is from emotional repression and basically not feeling your feelings. And anyway, she explains it way better than I do, but it has to do with trauma and with, the nervous system being dysregulated and you not feeling safe in your body. So that was also a lot of work I did, was primarily journaling. She describes her favorite journaling method, and it's called journal speak. And I started doing it. And that's actually what kind of resolved a lot of my remaining, symptoms and pain and all of that. And it's crazy because sometimes when I feel, say I get a headache or something, I'm like, oh, like something there's some feelings I have inside that need to be felt, because I've been kind of like shoving them under the carpet. Right. And when I do, a journal session about it, usually the headache goes away. Like, it's really crazy. But anyway, the whole, premise of her work is basically that the body perceives these subconscious emotions as a predator, from a biological perspective. And it would rather you be in pain or have this symptom than feel these big, scary feelings. Like anger and shame and resentment and sadness and loneliness, all these big things. So I realized, looking back at like when my symptoms kind of started and what I was going through in my life and what I had been going through the years before that, I realized this connection between trauma and symptoms, is your body's way of protecting you to keep you so busy and distracted on the symptoms that you don't have to worry about feeling your feelings. So I don't want to like go all into it, but if anyone's curious about learning more, the podcast is called The Cure for Chronic Pain. So
very interesting. And then how did that affect your career and your journey in wellness?
Yeah. So let's see, a few months ago, I decided to stop taking clients and to close my health coaching practice because it just no longer felt aligned. And I decided to just take a few months off. I had no clue what I was going to do. Actually, through pretty much the whole process, or most of the process of training for 29-29, I was, exercising my body, but I was also exercising like my patients, because I thought, okay, like I'm just going to wait for the universe to like reveal to me what I'm supposed to do. Like that was how I was kind of going about doing it. And, of course, probably like my friends and family are like, you're just sitting around, just like waiting for, I don't know, the sky to like drop down this idea to you. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. Like, so I was just, waiting. And I thought, whenever I'm supposed to know what I'm supposed to do, that will happen. I believe in stuff like that. And so anyway, it was, I think, a week or two before 29 that I had this idea to start a brick and mortar wellness center, a place. So another thing that is kind of a pet peeve of mine about the health and wellness industry is just how it's not accessible to everyone because of the price point of a lot of the stuff. To work with a health coach, to run, another thing I did was, testing with functional medicine labs, labs for gut health, for heavy metals, like all this stuff, food sensitivities, like all that, and people will pay thousands of dollars over the course of like 3 months for supplements, protocols, lab testing, working with a health coach, or a functional medicine doctor. And to me, that just didn't always sit very well because, it's just very inaccessible to a lot of people. So anyway, the idea kind of came about because I'm like, what are some of what I would consider to be the biggest bang for your buck in the wellness, realm? Like, what can people do to help their bodies and help their minds in, kind of a low cost way? And of course, there's a lot of stuff that actually just put out a website that has all this stuff on there that you can do, and most of it's for free. Just because that was kind of something on my heart to do, to share with people, like, because it's important to take care of your physical body. Obviously, I'm not trying to say that's not important at all, because it is. But, what are things that people can do for very low cost or for free?
What are some of, I'll post your website. What are some of those examples?
So a big one is just getting your eyeballs in the sunlight every morning. That's, getting up in the morning, getting outside. That's a huge one. Being outside barefoot. It's called grounding or earthing, getting your bare feet in the grass. That's,
I love one of my favorites.
Yeah. Right. It's so good. Meditation, of course, I'm big on that. I really like journaling, specifically this one method called Journal Speak. It's also called Rage on a Page. It's basically a way of just getting out all your feelings and repressed emotions. But that's so healthy for your mind. But I mean, mental health is physical health. Like the mind, I don't think we even fully understand that, how interconnected the mind is with the body and how the mind controls all of our physiological processes. It's huge. So that breath work, I think breath work is really important. What's some of the other stuff? Incorporating more salt. I drink loads of salt water. Actually, I have it right here, because minerals are super important. And typically stress and repressed emotions, these are all things that drain our minerals. So I always put like a high quality sea salt in my water. I put it on my food. Most people don't realize this, but they're sodium deficient. And yeah, I always add lime juice for potassium source, so that it's, balanced levels. What else?
Your brick and mortar.
Yeah.
I love everything you're saying. Do you also incorporate then the nutritional piece with the whole foods, the fruits, the vegetables?
I don't really incorporate the nutrition piece because the best advice that I can give to people is get to know your local farmers. That's really, I drink 2 gallons of raw milk every week from a local regenerative organic farm, and that's been one of the best things actually for my gut health. Also, that's been huge. Or maybe it's just losing the restriction. I don't know, but I have a copious amount of raw milk and butter and cheese made from raw milk. Like, I eat a lot of animal proteins like steaks and, all from, local farms. So I guess that's my biggest thing, is eating whatever's in season and whatever's local, from farms that are, farming the right way, and not, adding loads of chemicals to the ground and stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much what I tell people, if it's something that would never be grown in your city this time of year, it's probably not the best. But then again, I hate applying labels like good or bad, because, I think it's more harmful to restrict a food and say, no, that's bad, I can't eat that. I think mentally that has more negative consequences than just focusing on, the 80-20 rule, like trying to eat mostly local, mostly organic, and then, not like fixating on it. So
Yeah.
that's what I tell people. Like, just eat real food,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big proponent of that as well.
Yeah.
What can we expect from your brick and mortar, and when are you looking to open?
Yeah, so I'm looking to open hopefully this next summer. I'm still in the process of, getting a loan, finding space, finding the right space, I should say. But it's going to involve infrared sauna, cold plunge therapy, which I meant to mention that's one of my other favorite, which you can do cold exposure for free. You can actually, everyone should try this. When you're taking your normal shower, at the very end of your shower, you turn it to freezing cold you can start with 15 seconds. And that has so many benefits for the nervous system. It's accessible to everybody. Everyone has a shower pretty much, I think. So,
I am violently shaking my head no. Abigail knows Coach Ashley Randall, and she's been my strength coach for the past year. And she too loves the cold plunges. And we were talking about it, and I said, that's my absolute fear. I hate feeling cold. And she said, but you really got to try it. And I was like, there is no way. And then my friend Leslie and I were just talking about that along with the Wim Hof breathing. And I did take a screenshot from Instagram probably a good year ago, and it was about the benefits of cold plunge. And the thought is just so repulsive to be cold. So talk us through that, because I know I'm not the only one who feels this way.
Sure.
What are the benefits of a cold plunge, or a 15-second tomorrow after I do my workout, take my shower? I promise you, I will be open-minded and try this. Help me understand the benefits of a 15 seconds of pure freezing cold water.
Yeah, it is miserable. But that's kind of the point. Before I go into the benefits, when you did 29-29, when you finish and you're proud of yourself, right? For doing something that was so much harder than you thought you'd ever be able to do, right?
Yes. I got 5 ascents. I was injured on my 5th, but yes, even the 5 was an amazing accomplishment for myself.
Yeah, exactly. But even one lap up the mountain, you get to the top of the mountain and you look down, you're like, wow, I just climbed that. And during that, second half of the mountain, when it got really steep, there were parts that all of us thought, I don't know how I'm going to get through this.
Absolutely.
Even one time, because it was so brutal. But anyway, when you finish that, that's kind of a similar feeling that you get when you do a cold plunge. So for me, there are so many physical benefits also, but for me, I do it for the mental benefits more than anything, because when you have that fear and that, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this, and then you do it, and then you get out and you think, wow, what else can I conquer today? Like, what else is out of my comfort zone that I can do? I mean, it's the same thing with doing anything else that's outside your comfort zone, and you do it, and then all of a sudden your world expands, because you're like, wow, how else was I limiting myself before?
That is a fantastic way to put that, and it makes a lot of sense. And I promise you, I will do 15 seconds. I might be screaming, but I will do 15 seconds of a cold shower.
Good. I'll check in with you and make sure you do it. I will.
Well, part of 75 hard, I did the first phase of 75 hard. The second phase is taking a cold shower. And there was nothing about a cold shower that is even remotely interesting to me. Now I can be out on the mountain and I can have Coach Brent say, it's really cold and windy out here, Robin. Are you really going to hobble the rest of the way up like the Black Diamond? And I was like, yeah, this is like a spring day in Wisconsin. This is not a big deal at all. But a cold shower is no. I can be outside all day long, but a cold shower so I never did phase 2 of 75 hard because of the cold shower. Like, That is just the most frightening aspect.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was always someone who hated the cold. I was always freezing. My hands were always cold, that whole thing. And
Yeah.
I hated it at first when I started doing the cold showers, but you feel so good when you get out because I don't know, it's weird. Like, even if you were kind of cold before you got into the shower, like, when you get out of a hot shower, you kind of feel cold and you like want your towel.
Yep.
It's the opposite with this. You feel so good and like alive and like all your cells are like awake, kind of is what it feels like. And you get out, it's like, you don't even need to get it warm after you get out because you feel so good. Like, it's crazy, but it's so good for your nervous system because anything that we put as a stressor on the body, and then we learn to breathe through that and control our response. Because obviously the cold water hits you and you're like, and your body goes into fight or flight. And if you can bring your body from fight or flight to the parasympathetic state just through controlling your breath, then that also translates to other areas of your life. And it makes your nervous system more resilient and able to handle other stressors that come your way.
That was the best way I've ever heard it explained.
Well, thank you. But that's one of the things, the sauna, the cold plunge are going to be in the wellness center. Those are two of my favorite, natural healing modalities, just because of the mental side of it, the physical benefits. It's accessible to pretty much everyone. It's not a super high price point to come and do a session. And I want to have a lot of kind of community events there. And my dream for this space is to really build kind of a community around this that's interested in health and wellness and fitness and mindset work and breath work. And, we have breath work workshops there, meditation workshops, and, people can meet other people, like-minded people that maybe, come and do a workshop together on a Friday night instead of like going to the bars. Like, that's kind of my vision, I guess, for the space is to really help, to help encourage people to do things out of their comfort zone and to do hard things and translate that to other areas of their life too, where they might be, living kind of in their comfort zone. And then also we'll have PEMF therapy there, which is my favorite way for especially athletes or people who are, working out and get an injury. It's a really great way to quickly heal an injury and reduce inflammation.
And what is that?
PEMF stands for pulsed electromagnetic field. So basically it amps up your circulation and it reduces inflammation. A lot of cardiologists recommend their patients to use these machines. So yeah, that's another thing that actually I had a few injuries leading up to 29 during the training process. And I swear if it hadn't been for my PEMF machine, I don't think I would have been able to do what I did. So
I am very excited for you.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see your brick and mortar. And where will it be located?
So I live here in Powell, Ohio, and it will be in Powell, Ohio. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Powell
Anything
is
else?
a suburb of Columbus, for those who don't know where it is. Where Powell
Yep.
is.
I was going to say, okay, I'll go look it up on Google.
Columbus, Ohio. Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want our listeners to know?
I think really the biggest thing is just for me that's been so transformative with my health and wellness is pushing myself to do hard things that I didn't think I could do. I think that to me, like after 29, I, came back home with this this newfound appreciation for, not just my body, but like, if I could accomplish something that I thought was so unachievable, like as of a year ago, what can I accomplish in this next year? Like what, and I think that's why I'm like, okay, yeah, like before I think I would have been too scared to open a brick and mortar. Cause like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go into a lot of debt. What if no one comes? Like all the what ifs, like what if I fail basically is the big one. Cause that was a real fear, with 29, right? Like, and my goal wasn't even to get all 17 ascents. My goal was just to empty the tank, like most people there, right? And so,
yep.
I think that that was kind of my approach to starting this business is, I need to at least try and, put everything out there, and fully empty the tank to do this, endeavor. So yeah, I think just encouraging people to get out of their comfort zones is the big one.
And what if you're wildly successful?
Right.
Exactly.
What if, like, suspend the disbelief just for
Yeah.
a second. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. To all of our listeners, stay awesome and keep reaching for your anything.